Welcome to Bloodbath and Beyond. Today we review Friday the 13th, Part 2. Just when you thought it was safe to go back to camp.
Directed by Steve Miner, starring Amy Steele, John Furey, and Warrington Gillette and Steve Dash as Jason.
But I'm gonna give it to you straight about Jason. His body was never recovered from the lake after he drowned.
This movie's about a group of counselors going for counselor training. Unfortunately, where they're doing it is the old Camp Crystal Lake. But Crystal Lake is home of Jason Voorhees. And well, he doesn't want people lurking around his neck of the woods. This, of course, is a recommendation from our top donator over on Patreon, Deke. He had requested all of the Friday franchise. We started with the remake, and we're gonna end by doing Friday 1 after this one. We've done this in such a batshit order. So what do we like?
I really like the story. When you're coming in from number 1, you're like, okay, why is there a reason for them to come back to the camp? Counselor training, you got no kids, you got no nothing. It's just basically young adults looking to party and looking to learn. What better setting for a serial killer in the woods?
Sandra.
And I really like the intro because it's kind of like a false start. We have Adrienne King, the final girl from the first movie, getting murdered in the first scene. So you're like, it's gonna catch you off guard because it is a very, maybe 10 to 15 minutes after an abnormal amount of flashbacks for the first film. You're like, no way. They just killed the final girl off like that just to restart a new movie. It's awesome. And I liked all of our characters. I think our characters are really enjoyable. You got your pranksters.
Welcome to God's country.
All your sex crazed people trying to get it on.
Just your legs, huh? Is everything else okay?
Oh, I do all right.
We've got Mark, our guy in the wheelchair, which is an interesting touch because you don't really see that too often in horror movies. And he was probably one of the most notable deaths in the whole Friday franchise because of the amazing kill down the stairs.
Jason's a legend, Jimmy. A legend.
And of course, this is the first entry with technically Jason as our killer. It's interesting to revisit this, and after everything we've seen, this is Jason.
Yeah, this is like the origin story almost, because he's just coming into his own. Little sackhead boy who is apparently a carpenter because he's got his own little shack house.
And quite the maid because he cleaned up all that blood in the stairs before anyone even noticed.
He's been growing, learning. Ginny is onto him, which is of course one of the most notable final girls in the whole Friday franchise. And at first I was talking shit. Jason attacks Paul, and she's just like, Paul! She says Paul 40 times, and poor guy's getting his head beaten by this sackhead killer, and she just doesn't do shit. But she does run away. She does kind of lure him around trees, kick him in the nards, and continues to beat him up a lot.
This is the original moment where we see someone try and trick Jason by her pretending to be Pamela Voorhees.
It's more fun using that child psychology on you. You're such a sucker, Lauren.
Jason is easily fooled throughout this franchise, and you know what? This is where it all started.
You've done your job well, and Mommy is pleased.
So not only being the final girl and setting all this kind of stuff up, even at the bar, she lays everything out. If you ever wanted to know, why does Jason act like this? She says everything exactly, beat by beat.
And he must be out there right now crying for a return. For resurrection.
So it really set up for the rest of the franchise. Pretty good.
What do you think?
I think you're drunk.
I like this look for Jason. I like the overalls with the flannel shirt and the pitchfork and the sack over top of it. To think that he started with a pitchfork and a sack. The game has changed later on, but it just made sense. If you're thinking about someone who lived in the woods, what do they have? What are they gonna use as weapons? Jason used a variety of weapons, which was another nice touch. Not only did we have the pitchfork, we had the machete, we had the butcher knife, we had a screwdriver. He knew what he was doing.
Yeah, he just picks up the tools that are around him and uses what he needs to. He sees a guy strung up in a tree, he's just gonna walk over and slice his neck. Easiest kill of the day.
We've always kind of talked about Jason being stealthy sometimes, but in this one he was sneaking his way on top of stools and being oh, they won't see my feet. I'll wait for them to crawl out of the bed and then I'll jump at them.
Poor little Jenny pissing herself under the bed. It is what it is.
Where was I? You're about to give your let's keep our shit together speech.
And from a production standpoint, this movie definitely holds up. The music is awesome. Harry Manfredini absolutely kills it.
God, please help me.
The way that it's shot is interesting because obviously we're not seeing Jason's head, so there's a lot of fake outs. Maybe it's Crazy Ralph lurking around.
You're all doomed.
Or Scotty Too Hottie.
What a hunk, that guy. Speaking of hunks, there's also babes. Kirsten Baker, Terry, she's the best. I thought she was just an absolute babe. She might be one of my favorite babes in the whole Friday franchise.
Scott, I'm gonna cut you down, but I swear if you ever do this to me again, I'm gonna kill you.
Can't forget about our ripped redhead Teddy.
So we did a commentary for this on Patreon. Link is in the description. Check that out. Very fun. We've got lots of commentaries. People need to sign up for our Patreon. Join us for movie nights and shit. Anyway, so in our commentary, John's talking about him being like some ripped guy.
Hey, look how jacked he is.
Shut the fuck up.
His abs have abs.
All you bigger boys out there, we got muscles under here. He was like, look at his 8-pack. John, those are ribs.
But he was very entertaining.
He was an enjoyable character. All the characters were pretty good. I did wish that we saw more of some of the other counselors, but the ones that we actually did like talk to and learn were enjoyable.
Hi, Terry. Do you want to dance?
No, thank you.
Hi there. How about you?
Going back to the cinematography, I thoroughly enjoyed the long takes and the tracking shots. We had multiple moments where we're seeing characters going in and out of rooms and the cameras following them, but even to the point where Ginny ends up in Jason's house and through the window you just see Jason like running towards the house. They did a good job with the POV shots, making you wonder who was looking at these characters, but then also having so much in the background that you're like, oh snap, you better watch out, Ginny, because Jason's running for you.
And yeah, even when she's like sitting by the car, it was really cool because you can see Jason looking around. She's just like waiting, and at the right moment, she gets up right when Jason has turned around. So obviously somebody's telling her to do that off screen, but the fact that it happens, like the way that you see it is really cool. It's just like, well, that was lucky. Had you put your head up a second earlier, who knows what would have happened. Now, what didn't we like?
I wish we had more kills with the counselors. The fact that this starts off with 15, 16 counselors all hanging out there, you're like, oh my god, there's so much fodder here. We are going to get the coolest deaths you could ever imagine. But that's not the case. They come up with a reasonable reason why everyone should be away from the camp, and you don't get the kills that you think you're gonna get.
You get a few, like Jeff and Vicky getting it on, getting a spear through them, and even that is just like really quick. A lot of the kills that we do see are just like, oh, here's a scrape on a neck. The best kill is that Mark one, but all the other kills are very whatever. Like they're very throwaway. Nothing is really seen, whether that's like an editing issue like from the MPAA. Obviously this is like early 1980s, so they weren't as lenient. Thankfully that has changed now, and now it's a big highlight and focus of the franchise.
I told the others. They didn't believe me. You're all doomed.
And not even learning some of those other characters that you see. They're having a blast, they're having dinner on the deck, and you're like, oh, who's that? We never saw that person before. I hope we get to meet them. We're all going to the casino, which is just a bar with no slot machines, no virtual poker, nothing. But they're going there, and you're like, oh, we're gonna meet them. And you don't. You're just hanging with Ted and the gang.
These kids smoke better dope than I do.
Well, I kind of wish we had a great fake out with Teddy, because like if you're thinking about pranksters here, Ted was the one who had the mask on, jumped out with the spear. We joked about the idea that imagine if they put that mask on Jason before the sack.
I feel like it was a possibility. That would have been so fucking funny. And it would have been hilarious if he had it on while doing the double kill with the spear. Now it's time for our final thoughts and ratings. Friday 2 is an excellent movie. I liked all of our characters. I liked the setup, the story, the introduction to Jason, and the way that it was shot in such a way that you weren't 100% on like who's lurking around, because there are some fake outs. And I liked Jason himself because he used different weapons, enjoyable characters, great music, great cinematography, a little bit of nudity, but unfortunately we didn't get the kills that we wanted. There were some okay deaths, but they weren't like gory, they weren't over the top, and there weren't a ton of them. But at the end of the day, it's an excellent origin story for Jason, and it's set up for a successful franchise. So I gotta give this 4 booty shots out of 5.
I mean, really, what more could be said about this film? Revisiting it, I still love it. There's so much to this I appreciate from a technical standpoint and from a story standpoint. Everything looked really great in this film. I loved all our characters and the reasoning behind Jason's motives and why the counselors were there. There's nothing really negative about this film other than the fact that we had all these counselors and they didn't get the kills that I would have hoped for, and we didn't have that many good on-screen kills. Like, on top of that, I liked the false start, but I also felt it was on for too long. But at the end of the day, I love this movie and I highly recommend it. So with that being said, I'm gonna give this film 4 bobbing for Adam's apples out of 5.
As always, thank you for watching. Like this video and comment below with your thoughts on the film if you've seen it. If you haven't and you do want to check it out, watch it with our commentary. Link to the Patreon in the description. And if this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe to the channel, stay up to date with everything here on Bloodbath and Beyond.